Autumn internationals, Ireland and Japan. Second time these guys are meeting this year. Should be a pretty interesting one this weekend. We'll go over the squad, some of the recent results, some stats, and the predictions. You guys can let me know your thoughts on how this one's going to go. One of my neighbours is getting their roof redone. If you hear power tools in the background, that's what that is. But yeah, like I said, these guys met recently. Ireland got a bit of World Cup revenge, beating Japan 39-31. Kind of a young Irish team played in that one with the British and Irish Lions tour already being kind of in the build-up at that point. Last five results is 4-1 to Ireland, so they do have a pretty good record over Japan, although if you're looking at the last five, one of those results I think is more than 10 years ago. So kind of take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, but average score between the teams, 34 points to 21 is up. Is generally Ireland by a fair few. But yeah, like I said, the most recent result, 39-31. I seem to remember Japan scoring late in that one to bring the scoreboard a bit tighter, but do correct me if I am mistaken on that one. For the squads, Ireland have named a more familiar lineup in terms of some of the more senior guys being back. Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher, and Tyg Furlong is the front row. So Porter seems like they seem set on making him loose head. So yeah, it's an all Leinster front row, and scrum time will certainly be an area they look to get on top. But the Japanese scrum isn't bad. Like, they held up against Australia okay, and it's not an area they've tended to get bossed around too much, although it's likewise not an area they tend to dominate other teams. They tend to like to kind of get the ball out as quickly as they can, likewise with the lineouts. So, yeah, I think that's an area maybe Ireland will look to target. Locks, Tyg Byrne and James Ryan. So, Tyg Byrne's going to be a threat at the breakdown. It's almost like having an extra Lucy on the field whenever he's in the second row. And James Ryan, with his work rate, will certainly be getting through some tackles. Doris van der Fleer and Conan is a nice... I quite like that look of that back row, because whilst Doris is not a traditional kind of massive ball carrier, he's got a heap of skills about him. And then you've got Conan, who is a proper good ball carrier. And then with Van der Fleer and his exceptional work rate as well, getting through the tackle, shooting up out of the line, you've kind of got all these different guys with their different skill sets. It could balance pretty well. I mean, I'm also a fan sometimes of having a big old unit as a number 6, but I still like Doris because he can do things that other guys just can't do. Gibson Park and Sexton is a 9-10 combo that will be criticised by a fair few. The journalist in the press conference asking Andy Farrell about why Sexton keeps getting picked, and he basically said he's a once-in-a-generation player, and I'm going to keep picking him. I should say it's his 100th test, so that's a massive achievement, so congratulations to Johnny. Remember, he sat out the games when the July games because he was just having a wee rest, as with some of the other senior guys. So but as I said, experienced, and some of the younger guys are on the bench. Well, Murray's not younger, but Carberry is. Aki and Ringrose is the midfield. Obviously, there's no Henshaw because he's still injured. So that's a nice looking midfield. That's kind of I don't know. You got your big unit ball carrier in Bundy. And then Ringrose is your skills man. I'm kind of happy with that. If you put some of the other Irish midfielders there, I would have liked to see McCloskey as well. But, I mean, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I guess. James Lowe and Conway are the wingers. I do like Conway. I still feel like he's kind of underrated. He's quicker than he looks. I say this every time, man. But, he's quicker than he looks. He runs great lines. He's got good positioning. He's a solid all-round player, man. Very, very good. James Lowe, on the other hand, will again cop a bit of stick. He's not quite proven himself at international level, so today or this weekend is a good chance for him to do that. And then Hugo Keenan has really made that 15 jersey his own. It's interesting because Eddie Jones has been talking about it. Like, the All Blacks keep picking Beauden Barrett, who's like 6'5" or 6'6", and they've picked a big old fullback for themselves as well. Hugo Keenan is not that big a guy, but he's got what Eddie Jones, I think, called that vertical leap, vertical jump. He's just really good at jumping. Maybe it's a Gaelic football background, I don't know. But he's very, very solid under the high ball, which at the moment is such a key kind of part of the game. And he doesn't necessarily need the size to do it, but he's just got the skills. So, more of him at fullback. Please, pretty happy with that. Sheehan will get his debut at hooker from the bench. Healy and Beelum are the props. Henderson. It's amazing that you can have a guy like Henderson on the bench, Like most countries, he would be a starter. Omani, Murray, Carberry, and Earl. So it's a pretty senior-looking bench, you'd have to say. with Omani, Murray, and Earls all well into their 30s. So maybe that's one area that Andy Farrell's going to cop a bit of stick. And again, I think the journalists did kind of ask him about the age of the squad, and he he does what coaches do in press conferences, gave his reasons, and I think basically said that when the young guys are good enough to replace the older guys, they will do so. So whether you believe that, I don't know, but it's certainly a different Ireland team that played in July. I think it was only 6 guys started that game that started this game. For Japan, a fair bit more stable, at least from what we saw, because they played a fortnight ago against Australia. They lost that game 32-23 at home. So kind of a similar scoreline to what they lost to Ireland, although that one was away. And I mentioned that as against a young Irish team. But yeah, the Japanese are picking a pretty stable lineup. They certainly seem to be building around kind of a solid, 30-odd players that they seem to be focused on. Inagaki, Sakate, and Ku is the same front row that played against Australia, and that seems to be Jamie Joseph's favourite front row at the moment. Cornelsen and Moore are the locks, and Cornelsen, I think, is replacing mostly, it used to be Van der Vault, but I think he's still out. So Cornelsen seems to be the next cab off the rank. Gunter, Labuskakini, Jimeno. Speaking of good back rows, like it's also a pretty nicely balanced one. Labuskakini, kind of like like Van der Fleer, likes to get around the park, make a heap of tackles. He's a big threat at the breakdown, also likes to shoot at the line, so kind of very similar, like traditional sevens. Gunter I haven't seen a lot of, but he seems like a bit of a solid unit. I think he got his debut against Australia, so first game for him at test level, and then Jimeno is there at number 8. He is, if you haven't seen him, man, like he played for the Highlanders in Super Rugby in the season just gone, and looked like one of the best players on the team. Like at international level, you've seen him, but if you haven't seen him, like at Super Rugby level, when he's playing with like All Blacks on his team or against them, like he still looked like he gets man of the match at times. Like he is just a very, very, very good player. Like just carries like, a wrecking ball. One of those guys who's got no kind of no regard for his own safety, seemingly, and very good at the breakdown as well. So with him and Labuskakini as a team, they will certainly be very competitive. Nagari and Tamura are the 19 combo. So Tamura is back at 10. He's the guy we're more used to seeing. He replaces Matsuda, right, who played last week at 10 or fortnight ago. So yeah, experienced guys, that's probably their best 9-10 combo. Nakamura and Lafaele, that's the midfield that's a bit of a mainstay for the Japanese lineup under Jamie Joseph as well. Very, very solid. So yeah, they'll be a good matchup for Aki and Ringrose, I reckon. Riley is the guy on the right wing. He got his debut from the bench a fortnight ago. Don't know a heck of a lot about him, but keen to see how he goes. And Fafita, I think he got his first game for Japan against the British and Irish Lions. Got exposed a little bit defensively, but yeah, first game, man. It's a pretty hard way to enter the fray. And yeah, very, very dangerous with ball in hand. So he's only going to get better as we get more tests into him. And good news for Japan, Matsushima is back. Remember, he wouldn't have been released from his club in France for the game a fortnight ago, but he is open for selection for this one. So good to see him there as well. Bench, Niwai, Miller, and Ivolo, that's the same. Tokunaga is still there. He was a late replacement for Michael Leach, who missed the last game due to a kind of injury. I think it was in training the day before. Or maybe it was in the warm-up, but either way, he was a late replacement. So Leach is still unavailable. Tatafu is the big number 8. And then you got Saito, Matsuda, and Yamanaka as the 3 back replacements. No Masarewa this week. He's out of the 23, which is a pity because he's also really good under the high ball and only got a couple of caps. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see like two kind of contrasting styles. Like both teams average very similar numbers of run meters per game, but Ireland tend to make a lot more carries getting them. Ireland like to truck it up, whereas Japan offload about twice as much as Ireland. So kind of, yeah, very, very different styles. Like they both pass it a lot, but maybe kind of with the Japanese guys trying to spin it wide a wee bit. And, you know, Ireland playing a bit more one-off runners and just kind of strangling teams and kind of arm wrestling them down. But they've certainly got the backs to light things up if you give them a chance as well. Will Ireland maul it? Probably. Will Japan? Probably not so much. They don't tend to have huge maul numbers. And I think they tried it a couple of times against Australia and it didn't kind of go too well. So I would expect more quick play from them. Like I said, average score 34-21 over the last 5. But the bookies for this one have got Ireland by 17. And the Rugby Forecast algorithms got Ireland by 20. So predicted to be pretty comfortable favourites. It is on at the Aviva. It's on at 1, I think it's 1 o'clock local time, which makes it 2 o'clock in the morning over here in New Zealand. We've got a Georgian ref for this one. So good luck to the ref. Hopefully we're not talking about the ref come to the end of the game. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on this one. How do you think this one's going to go? Do you think Ireland are just going to be too strong with that experienced lineup they've named? Would you have liked them to see, to give some of the more kind of inexperienced guys a crack? And for Japan, can you see them upsetting Ireland, or do you think it's going to be maybe a bridge too far? If you want British and Irish Lions gear, speaking of the British and Irish Lions, there's still a sale on with the British and Irish Lions store. Last I checked, it was 60% off. If you want to grab yourself some winter gear or anything else which is kind of stuff they're flogging off because it's the post the tour, the gear is always on discount. Check the link in the description there, an affiliate of the channel. So happy days, get some discounted gear. It's always my favorite. But yeah, you guys take care, and I will talk to you again soon. See you later.